Welcome, Theresa. Welcome to the Fireside Chat. I'm glad you're here with us.
Thank you so much, Elton, for this opportunity to speak to you and to your members about Detroit and what I do and what we do here in Detroit.
So let's get right to it. Ms. Theresa is very passionate about environmental justice. Can you talk to us a little bit more about, especially for those who have never been to Detroit, talk to us about what it's like and why you're so passionate about the environment there in Detroit.
Detroit is a thriving, vibrant city. However, in most cities, parts of the cities, communities, they suffer from lack of resources. Clean water, clean air, clean soil. We have what we call food deserts. There are no viable grocery stores with healthy foods. For people to have challenges like that, that's something that we as EJ community people and EJ advocates, we lift up the voices of people that are in need. And so we fight for those resources. We have a water advocate, Monica Lewis Patrick. And we have a serious challenge here in Detroit with a high rate of our residents being shut off of water. And she started We the People of Detroit, and they focus around equity and the fight for clean, affordable water. And they actually still deliver water to people's homes because the water shutoffs have continued to happen. And here in my community, we have a serious challenge with our children being impacted by asthma because of the serious pollution. We have more than 42 major and minor polluting sources, heavy polluters, and that impacts our health. We have been fighting for many years to get our doctors to understand that our health is being impacted by the very air that we breathe. Our doctors are not trained to identify environmentally related diseases, such as asthma, connecting it with the air we breathe because of the high particulate matter, PM 2.5 and PM 1, PM 10. Those are dangerous dust that comes from fallout from industry and from roadside pollution that impact the health of our children and our residents. But when I was growing up, I lived amidst factories, right? As I mentioned earlier, some of them. Our air was always stinky. Our air was always orange or black or gray, and the fallout will be on our cars. It was not unusual to see our family, the adults, washing our house down and washing the driveway down because of the fallout. And we didn't know that the very industries that my dad worked at, Zug Island, Marathon, US Steel, and all that, would have an impact because of the dangerous chemicals that they were releasing.
Are you seeing that pollution and those health concerns are happening citywide, or is it kind of over felt, or are there certain communities around Detroit that are impacted most?
In my opinion, it's happening more and more for the whole Detroit, but in my community, Southwest Detroit 48217, we identify ourselves by a zip code, federal zip code, because we wanted people to understand that in our community, we have a Marathon oil refinery, part of the largest oil refinery in the nation. And we have surrounding us industries like US Steel, which is now idled, and DTE Energy, which produces our energy, US Steel, DTE, Cleveland Cliffs, Commerce Line, Zug Island, the wastewater treatment plant. These are some of the most egregious actors in our community that pollute. Some of them are grandfathered in, so regulatory agencies do not put the restrictions of law under the Clean Air Act in the prospect of putting a stronger regulations and violations against these companies. Here in Southwest Detroit, we have been deemed the most polluted zip code in the state of Michigan, and at one time we were number 3 in the nation. Also, we have been deemed the pediatric, the epicenter of the pediatric asthma burden in the city of Detroit. We are now, Detroit is number 1 in asthma hospitalizations among our children and adults. And that's a challenge. That's a problem that needs to be addressed from the federal government, from the state government, and from our local city government. And so that's what we fight for: the right to breathe clean air, the right to a healthy, livable life for our children.
How can you not fight for that? I mean, that should be common sense. The right to breathe clean air. Let me peel back the layers a little bit and let everyone know who you are. A lifelong Detroiter. You've I think I read you currently live in the same house that you grew up in.
Well, not exactly. For many African Americans coming from the South, families tend to stay in the same comfort zone that they're used to. I grew up a few houses down, but then my father bought another house for my brother on the same street, and then I eventually left my parents' home and bought a house a few doors down. So we had three houses on the same block within walking distance of a house. And here in Southwest Detroit, we had that. The Washington family, when the children left, they bought a house across the street. The Dockery family, when their children moved out, they bought a house across the street. So families tend to stay together. And that's one of the great things about Detroit, that family atmosphere. It still exists. That was brought from the South to the North. It still exists.
I love that. Can you speak more about just that feeling of family and community that is going on when that happens? What that means to the community and what that means to families when they're able to do that?
Okay, first of all, it means safety and comfort and familiarity. You know the people around you. You know their qualities and what they bring to the table as community. When you say community, what does that mean? It means social, where people commune. And back when I was growing up, it was not unusual for a relative to come from the South and move in with us until they could find a place today. I mean, a place to live. And that atmosphere is still maintained at some point in our community today. We still have family come from other states, and for them to have that support and that blanket to be able to become stable enough to move out on their own, we still have that today. And my grandparents came here from the South. They bought a house in what we call Ecorse. And then from Ecorse, my mom left Ecorse and went to River Rouge. And then my family, my father, when Blacks were able to purchase homes, purchased a house in Southwest Detroit. So I live in a community what we call the Triple Cities: Ecorse, River Rouge, and Southwest Detroit. And that's due to after slavery, Jim Crow laws were instituted. And so when Blacks started to come to Detroit or the North after World War I, during the first wave of the Great Migration, they were redlined into certain communities. And after World War II, same thing. Blacks came north, and it was orchestrated by the United States government, VA, the banks, the mortgage companies, the real estate companies, that Blacks were what they encouraged, but really forced to live in what we consider red line communities. And that's all across America. And so we tended to stick together. My brother lives in Ecorse. My nieces, nephews, they live in River Rouge. And then the other part of our family lives in Southwest Detroit, even though we had other family members that came. My aunt came, and when she settled in Detroit for her family, she moved to the 8 Mile Livernois area of Northwest Detroit. And so we still have that today. And when I was younger, people couldn't afford to pay their rent or if they found a house, pay the house note, which many Blacks were only able to purchase homes on land contract because the banks wouldn't give them a loan. VA, United States government, they couldn't get a loan. So they bought their homes on land contract. Often we had the Friday fish fry, and we would gather money and we would pay that person's rent or pay that person's house note. And or if they needed groceries, we would have a fish fry, get the money together. And I'll never forget, I had to participate as a kid. We had to actually clean and scale the fish. And my sister doesn't eat fish today because she hated cleaning the fish. But we would have a fish fry to raise money to support a family that was in need, whether it was food, rent, even money to get back and forth to work. And so that's what community means to me, to support one another.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Do you feel like that kind of community support, whether that's the Friday fish fry, do you feel like that kind of bond within a community still exists today, especially in your Detroit community?
It does here in Southwest Detroit 48217. I can't speak for other communities, but I would hope and pray that it did. Um, Living on this block, I know all my neighbors by name. Uh, I know the neighbors in the next block. I know the neighbors behind me on the next street. And I can go on every street in my community and I can know 3 or 4 families, that are still staples in the community from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. I would hope that it is the way things are happening throughout Detroit. But I know newer families, different families of different cultures are moving in, and we have to continue to foster that family atmosphere with them despite the cultural differences. We do have many Hispanic families that have moved in, and we have reached out. There's been a language barrier, so what we'll do is we'll go find a friend that we know speaks Spanish, and we'll come and say, welcome to the neighborhood. We have a neighborhood organization if you'd like to join. It meets every third Thursday of the month, and we provide the community with information and resources that may be useful to them.
Where does that come from? Just the willingness and to see that there is a barrier and not let that barrier just stay up, but to try and find resources within the community and solve that challenge. Where does that come from? What motivated you to actually do that, and maybe members of your community to do that?
Well, I know it comes from my family's background and the values and morals and things of community that they instilled in us. But here in Southwest Detroit, it comes from a sense of survival. When you talk about environmental justice, people think about the environment, just the air, the water, the land, but the environment encompasses everything: education, food, health, the survival of a community. It survives because of the people that exist within it to help it survive. We foster clean, safe neighborhoods. That's for our residents and for our businesses, and especially for our schools with our children. So we need to know the children, we need to know the families so we can help define their need. And people don't look at environmental justice holistically. It encompasses everything, because when you talk about community, you're not talking about a building, you're talking about the actual human environment and the human person that must exist within a community to be able to share, to be able to foster that family atmosphere. We're losing it, in my opinion, with a lot of challenges that we're facing by what I call the trickle down impact that the city has here, in my opinion. I have to say my opinion because a lot of people feel that what's happening in our community is great for everybody, but it's not. When busing happened, children were bused to other communities and going to different schools. They didn't have that atmosphere like I did. We had like about 100 children on our block. The Hogans had 17 children. It was 7 children in my house, 5 children in the Holmes family house. So we had big families. So the children knew each other and we walked to school together. But with busing came in back in the, I guess the 60s, that we lost that. Children went different ways. So they didn't bond and have that community and street friendship. They were going to different schools, and we're losing that in my opinion. But I hope that in Southwest Detroit, we can still maintain that. And that's what we try to do here in Southwest Detroit 48217. We have some centenarians. I know them by name. I know the family. I know their great grandchildren. we still try to foster that here.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. I actually have a more of a selfish question, and it's very specific to Detroit. If you wanted a soft drink, or whether that's Coca-Cola or a Sprite or a Faygo, are you calling it soda or are you calling it pop?
I call it soda.
Okay.
I call it pop because we came from the South. But many people call it here, they call it pop.
Okay. Okay.
But I say both
Okay.
because my upbringing and my family coming from the South. So when somebody says, what kind of drinks do you have here? I say, you mean soda pop? So I combine those words.
What is one of the happiest memories you've had growing up in Detroit?
Oh, well, as I had mentioned earlier, on my street, we had a lot of children because we had big families. We had one family that had the least amount of children were two. We always had multiple. So that family atmosphere, that camaraderie, you know, we would go on the other side of town and we didn't know anybody, right? But sometimes there would be a party and you could look across the room and see somebody from your neighborhood, right? And immediately you're like a magnet, you're going over there, you feel that comfort zone. So that comfort of the sharing. Um, in our community when I was growing up, we had just a thicket of trees. Only street that didn't have trees was Electric Street. That's because the streetcar ran from downriver to downtown Detroit before they you know, removed it. And every family had a garden. Matter of fact, my family had 7 to 10 gardens that the children, us 7 children, had to farm. And when the harvesting came in, we would get the big old burlap sacks filled full of corn and green beans and tomatoes and things like that. And we would take them to our neighbor's house and share, take them to Ecorse and share, take them to River Rouge and share. And that sharing aspect, that family aspect was always within Detroit. So that's the happiest moment. I remember we had the churners, the way you churned ice cream. And I'm telling you, 7 kids, we had 7 churners, peach ice cream, strawberry ice cream, chocolate ice cream. And then the families would come and my mom would give them a cup of ice cream to take home after we had the fish fry. So that family atmosphere is what I remember most about Detroit, in which I want to foster it in my life for my child, my grandchildren.
Ice cream and fried fish. I'm coming to your neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
um, can you talk to me about your daughter?
Well, my daughter is a mom of two, and she's a struggling single parent, and I'm there as that safety net, even though I try to let her stand on her own. I'm my youngest is just now turning 9 months old. My daughter went here to school in Detroit. I was there. I volunteered at every school that she was at, every program she was at. In the 35 years that she has been on this earth, I've only missed one program, and she still holds that against me, a dance recital that she had. But I think she's well grounded with, I hope, the values and morals that I've instilled within her about family. She works in the medical field, so she's about service. And the work that we do and that I do is about service. So was born into being a servant to other people. And so she's, to me, she's happy. She did tell me one thing though. As a child, I would drag her to college with me when I was in college. I would drag her to all the environmental justice meetings with me. So she knows about environmental justice. She knows that we fight for everybody. We don't just fight for ourselves. And she did tell me, she says, you know what, Mom, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go into the environmental justice atmosphere per se as an advocate, because my phone starts ringing at 6 o'clock in the morning and it doesn't stop ringing until 2 in the morning. People are calling you for everything. And I remember she would get up and say, I'm so tired to go to school. Can I stay home? I said, no. The phone rang all night, me trying to help and serve the people in my community for their needs. Somebody's gas may have gotten cut off. They were cold, what can you do? I will never forget, we had Kmart. I ran out and bought heaters because the gas was cut off for some of the residents to heat their homes. I've taken money over to people's homes in the middle of the night. People's children have gone to jail, and the parents calling me in the middle of the night. Oh, what can I do? We can't do anything but wait till the morning. So I hope that I've instilled that within her. We give of ourselves, and we help our residents, and we help our family and our friends. So, but she says she's not going to come into the environmental justice advocacy because it's just too much, and she feels that is a thankless job.
Well, it's obvious that you're proud of her,
Yeah.
and she picked up a few things along the way, learning from you. Can you talk about your grandbabies?
Well, Morgan, she's 5. She's just started school and she has separation anxiety, of course. So when grandma comes over, she's all up in my lap, wanting that comfort because mom's like, Morgan, you got to go to bed or get early and stuff like that. And my grandson, Blake, he's just now trying to stable himself to try to take his first steps. And he's getting 2 teeth. He's been teething. And so we call him, when he gets in this mood, we call him the Blakeosaurus because he's. So I enjoy my grandkids. I know that my daughter called me a bad grandmother, and I was like, "Why am I a bad grandmother?" She said, "Because you don't have time to babysit. Because I go to so many meetings, so I'm trying to slow down and be in her life more, and in the grandchildren's life more, because environmental justice work is a reactionary work, and we react to incidents. Matter of fact, we just had on the 13th of September a release from Marathon Oil Refinery at 6:18 in the morning. Many of the residents were asleep. The sirens went off, and I'm telling you, my phone started to jump off the hook. Oh, something's happening at the refinery. Should we leave? I don't know. Let's call and see what's going on. And so that's what we did. And so it's like it's 24/7. We have what they call an automatic robocall, where when there's an incident at the refinery, they'll automatically call us like an Amber Alert. That emergency alert system will be down for 6 weeks. So if the incident was something that was dangerous, we would have had very little notice and actually what occurred. So that was one of the things that we work on. We're working on what we consider a specific evacuation plan for the community in case of an environmental incident, in which we've had many. One we did have where there was a mandatory evacuation in Melvindale, a suburban, mostly white community, and South End Dearborn at the time, which was predominantly white. But here in the city of Detroit, the city didn't take any action. So the Black community where Marathon is located, we were not evacuated. So ever since then, we've been advocating for evacuation plans specific to our area because of the challenges we face by heavy industry that have the high propensity to have explosions and fires and environmental incident releases that could be harmful to our community. So I'm one of the people that gets the alert, and we're trying to make it widespread so everybody can sign up for it, so that everybody can get the alert, and then they can take precautions that they feel is necessary to protect themselves.
Wow, thank you for what you're doing and the way that you're advocating for your community and being a resource for your community. Can you tell me how? Can you tell me if you've seen or noticed any progress? Does it feel like there's been any progress?
I have to say yes and no. For the really major incidents that we've had, I don't think that our city and that our regulatory agencies and the industries themselves are doing the best they can. We know they can do more. Here in the state of Michigan, we have what we call the environmental protection agency, like the EPA. We call it EGLE, Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. They have fostered, in our opinion, a shroud of secrecy for the work that they do. And we don't feel that they have been using the power and that they have with regulating industry to the greatest ability that it should be. So we still have that stalemate, even though I'm on one of the committees, the Michigan Advisory Council on Environmental Justice, under the current governor, Gretchen Whitmer. We feel that there's still some blockage and gatekeepers that will not share with our community the things that they can do under their power. So that's one of the things we're dealing with right now, the secrecy around the regulatory agencies' abilities, actions, and power, and how much they're willing to do. And we don't think they do enough, in my opinion. I don't think they do it.
And does that motivate you to try and do more? Because you, okay.
Of course, many days I say to myself, am I doing enough? And here, even in our city, with our mayor, in my opinion, has never stepped out on environmental justice to address it as it should be. I don't think he's stepped up enough to help the people that are impacted by serious air pollution. We have the data, we have the stats, we have the information. Why aren't they acting? And that's a hard conversation. But now we have a Department of Sustainability. We have a new director, Mr. Jack, and they're talking about resiliency and sustainability. I don't like those words. What I like is resources for us to survive. And that's what we need. We need clean water, clean air. We need clean soils for our children to play on. We need grocery stores in communities that do not have them. And they often talk about, well, what does your community need? We tell them over and over and over. So they're saying, oh, well, we're going to improve this area over here and this area over here, and then we'll get to you guys because it'll trickle down. That trickle down impact does not help. It hinders. What we feel, they should work from the ground up and help the least of us up. And because the people that are more affluent already have the resources and access to healthy foods. We don't. We don't even have a medical facility in our community. And we have some of the highest rates of cancer, asthma, diabetes, heart disease. So why isn't that being one of the number one priorities, to make unhealthy communities healthy?
You said a mouthful there. It says so much about someone when their community knows they are a resource who is always willing to pick up the phone and advocate for them on their behalf.
If we don't do it, who will? Just for instance, with COVID, when COVID hit the United States, there was a huge denial, and there was no information given to the people. It was a shroud of secrecy as that monster began to kill people. In the Black communities, they were hit hardest the first. We had families of 3 die, all from COVID. Families of 8 all got COVID, and were seriously ill. Some that have what they call long haulers, their lungs were so damaged. And then we here in Michigan, the governor established a health disparities task force. Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist headed that because so many Black people were dying of COVID. And in my opinion, our government under that previous administration did not protect the people. In fact, they kept it a secret how dangerous it was. They kept using words that made it palatable. They never said that COVID was airborne. They kept using words like aerosol. A lot of people, you have to meet people where they are in understanding. And our government, our U.S. Surgeon General, they hurt the people. Our CDC hurt the people by not giving the people the information to protect themselves. And then when it hit, no one came to our rescue. We had to triage our own community. In fact, I started to fill my truck up and take food to people that were shut in, take to people that needed it, ask them, do you need medication? What kind of medication? Even though we didn't know what kind of medication was needed to fight COVID. But I would do it. I did it for 3 years. I went to every food pantry from Tuesday to Saturday, filled my truck up, and I serviced more than on a weekly basis about 300 people by myself, right? Well, guess what? I started to call people with cars and say, can you help me? We created our own caravans to take people food. In fact, I was part of what we termed as, we got it from someone else, mutual aid. We raised about $78,000. We gave families $300, no questions asked during COVID. They could use it for whatever, pay for medicine, pay for utilities, pay for food. And in Southwest Detroit, 4217 and Ecorse and River Rouge, I was that contact person. They said, Theresa, look, all you got to do is get us the people, address what they need is, what's their need, and they would send me the money and send the people. And then I was able to give the money to the people. We had about $12,000 left over after that mutual aid happened. I gave it to the church, and it helped the seniors and people that had families around Christmas time to be able to have, they averaged about, each person got about maybe $400 in their envelope. Plus they got a basket of food. Not only that, we had companies and people have coat drives. And they said, Miss Lander, where can we give the coats? We gave them to local churches that gave them out. We gave them to the local Perry Outreach Center to give people coats for the winter, children all the way up to adults. So we had to come to our own aid and triage our own community because the government wasn't there during COVID, in my opinion. They were late.
I'm glad you were there for your community and that your community had you and others as a resource. One thing that you mentioned, $300 and that they could use however they want. Why was that part important? Them being able to use that however they want?
Because we didn't want to be a watchdog to say, oh, you had to spend it on this. And you don't know someone's needs, right? And we couldn't go to over, because I think it was over almost 500 families or more that benefited. Way more than that. I just can't remember. You have to remember, I'm a senior citizen. I'll be 70 years old next year. And so
You're
I'm forgetting.
young. I don't believe it.
Yeah, thank God for that. But I wasn't the only one, right? We had the EJ environmental justice advocates. And as we said, we had Mama Monica. She, the what we consider EJ advocates and the water warriors, they joined forces and they had water coming in and we stored it at a church, and they would actually have young people filling people's trunks up full of water. Because during COVID, the first line of defense was wash your hands, right? And I had mentioned that in Detroit, we had more than 40,000 families whose water was being shut off during COVID. How could they defend themselves? So we joined forces, and the young people that had the strength and the brawn would throw cases of water and then deliver water to people's homes that did not have water. And I have to really commend Mama Monica Lewis Patrick, because they are the water warriors. They're fighting for right now affordable water plan here in Detroit, not a subsidy, but an affordable water plan, and that should be carried across America, because my community only mirrors what is happening across America.
I could continue asking you a bunch of questions along those lines. So I'm so intrigued by all of that. But I want to manage our time a little bit better, just knowing that you first connected with UpTogether through the UpTogether Equity Fund, right?
Yes.
That was a cash offer. There was that meant there would be investments directly into Black leaders in the community and communities across the country. Can you share with us a little bit what that experience was like, and do you mind even sharing what you used the investments towards?
Okay, I didn't know about UpTogether, even though I know some of the people that are in working UpTogether in Detroit. But I was contacted by a young lady by the name of Piper Carter and another gentleman, Daryl Jordan, who are EJ advocates in their own right, just in different areas. And they told me about it. I was suspicious. I said, nobody gives free money. Nobody gives free money until I joined in the mutual aid that we were giving away free money, right? And so when I was selected, my daughters were selected too because she did the Get Out the Vote campaign because it's very important to vote. And so she did to Get Out the Vote. So we both were recipients. And the money came to me. I used the money for gas. I used the money to give people that needed money. I used it to print flyers and to host meetings to let people know about UpTogether and what their focus was to help lift up people. And that's what we're there to do, here to do, to lift people up. And that's how we maintain and we use our resources. So I use the money to give people money if they needed food, use it for gas and things like that, and to continue the work of being able to go throughout the community helping people with their need. I didn't just service Detroit. I serviced Dearborn Heights. I serviced Allen Park. Anybody that called me and said, Ms. Landrum, I need food. And someone called me and said, Ms. Landrum, I need money for baby formula and diapers. I gave them part of the money so they could purchase what they need. And in that process, I found a lady by the name of Minnie, and she does a diaper drive. So I gave her clothes. No, I gave her hand sanitizer, and she gave me diapers to give to new moms. And then I met a young lady, and her family had a distillery, and they went from making alcohol to making sanitizer. So she would drive from Lansing and bring me, not Lansing, Grand Rapids, I think it was, and bring me cases of sanitizer. So I would go to people's home and sit sanitizer on their door. And then someone said, well, my family got COVID. So I would go get food and sit a case of sanitizer and food on their steps. Someone said, Theresa, I need a coat. We would have that and we sit it on their steps because we didn't go into anybody's home. So people would, as they come to the door, I sit in my car and they get the resources. So we triaged our own community when our government wasn't there for us. And so that's what I use part of the money for.
To me, that's a mic drop answer. I appreciate you for what you're doing in the community, and then being able to share with us how the community was a resource to itself in ways that they shouldn't have to.
People often say, why do you do it? And how did you get involved in it? I got involved out of necessity, seeing that my community was sick and getting sicker.
What are the most important lessons that you would want to instill in your grandchildren based on your experiences?
Okay, the important lesson that I would like to instill with my grandchildren. First of all, I have to say this. People say, "Oh, Miss Van, you shouldn't say this." I say it to realize that you're Black and you're in America, a country that is run by white people that don't have your interests at heart. Learn that. Learn your history, and never give up. I don't care who it is. You know, whatever your convictions are, and believe in yourself. This is a thankless job, and many days I wake up, I'm afraid, but I still go out and do it because somebody has to do it. And if I know that the group of people that I work with and have encompassed around myself, they have that same attitude. Together, we're powerful. Together, we're fearless. And so that fear, hey, just leave it up to God and you know, ask God that, Lord, help my faith overcome my fear. And that's what I step out of. Every day I'm afraid. Going in these sport rooms, many days I'm the only African American in a room, mostly white men. And I still have to say, I'm afraid, but I still say what my true convictions are. If they say, oh, we're doing better at our job, you're not doing better. You're not doing better. If you were doing better, you would put in the best pollution control technology available. Don't worry about well, it's expensive. Losing a life of a resident or a child being diagnosed every day is expensive for the medical costs for that family have to incur. So I'm not often welcome in a room, but I go in there anyway.
It's been an absolute pleasure listening to you and hearing your story, hearing your perspective, your experiences, your opinions. So thank you for joining us for the Fireside Chat.
And thank you UpTogether for even wanting to listen to just a little old resident just fighting to survive, and hoping and praying that my fight can carry over to help someone else, to inspire someone else to fight to survive.